Hey trappers, Dale Billingsley here, Billingsley Brand Lures. So I've had a request to go over some beaver stuff, so I kind of thought that's what I would do today. We've got a rain coming in, so I'm going to try to get through this fairly quickly, but yet cover everything that I need to cover. First thing I want to go over with you is my equipment that I use. I use very few. In fact, I only own two 330 combinators. I just don't see much sense in using them very often. I do have certain places that I use them that we'll go over later on in a future video, but for right now we're going to concentrate on footholds and snares. The snares that I use are built just like my just like what my coon snares were in my raccoon trapping video. Only a little longer. That's the only difference. They're just longer. This is, I use 7 foot of 3/32 7x7 aircraft cable for the tail, and I don't believe I went over this in the raccoon video, so I will now. Let's see if you can see this in the video. This is a 600-pound test Roscoe crane swivel. Now that's very important that you remember that name, Roscoe crane swivel. You cannot use just a regular fishing type barrel swivel. They will break it. So make sure you get the Roscoe crane swivels, 600-pound test. I've never had one of these fail. I use them on raccoon, beavers, coyotes, fox, bobcats, and I've never had one fail on me. So be sure that that's what you get. The loop of the cable, the loop of the snare is approximately 3 foot of 5/64 7x7 cable with a 3/32 cam lock on it, and then that little poly rubber piece of hose for the support collar. And that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. Here in Iowa, we are required to have a deer stop on, but other than that, we're pretty wide open. So make sure in your state, wherever you live, that you're able to use snares, or if you have to use cable restraints, then by all means, that's what you need to use. Just look up your regulations. Make sure you're within the law. I don't want anybody getting pinched for anything. Anyway, that pretty well covers the snare portion of it. The footholds that I use, and that is the secret to my system. It's not really my system. I call it mine, and everybody else does too, but it's not my system. This system I use has been around for hundreds of years. Clear back to when the mountain men first moved west in search of beaver. They used this system. The only difference is I've just done, through the years, we've done a few changes with it. And actually not a whole lot. The mountain men didn't drown their beaver intentionally. I don't drown my beaver intentionally. I hold them all alive. The mountain men, sure enough, did not ride into the first outpost they came to, and first trading outpost, and go in and get a dozen fiberglass rods and Hags drowning brackets. Not saying Jeff doesn't make fine product. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is they didn't have those back then. They didn't have slide rods. They didn't have fiberglass rods. They didn't have cable. They didn't have wire. They had traps and they had chain. That's what they had. And not very many traps at that. The most they might have had would have been a dozen a piece. Most of them probably had somewhere between 6 and 10. Because the traps were big, they were heavy, they were expensive. They were moving all the time, so they had to travel light. So let's get into this a little bit. Now this is a TS85 coil spring trap on 10 feet of chain. No drowning apparatus connected to it in any way, shape, or form. Beaver that I don't particularly care for these on front feet. Holding them alive, you're going to have some ring off, and what the reason being is when that beaver's up on the bank and when he starts to roll and twist like they do, that big old trap hangs in the mud and in the dirt, and it stops, and the beaver doesn't. And when you break those front leg bones, he continually keeps rolling and twisting, and that's when he breaks it off and twists out. Fine back foot catch. They're absolutely fantastic on the back feet. Front feet, you'll hold some, but you're going to have some issues with them too. So I'm warning you about this ahead of time. Don't think you can use these just strictly on front feet. You need to be using them on some back feet. I run about I run 5 pounds of pan tension on them, somewhere between 4 and 5. 6 doesn't hurt anything. But I try to stay right around 5 pounds of pan tension. That's pretty much it right there on a big iron. On a big iron beaver trap, that's pretty well it. Now my all-time favorite beaver trap is a number 3 Bridger coil spring. This was a double coil. I took the front coils off because the trap's brand new and I didn't see the need for the extra strength. Again, 4 to 5 pounds of pan tension, and either add 10 feet of chain to this, or what I do a lot of times, since I'm using these a lot, double purpose for beaver and for coyotes as well. And I still run long chains on my coyotes a lot of times, but sometimes I need a short chain. So I made up some of these 1/8 inch extension cables that are 10 feet long. And I just use them. I just attach them to the end swivel on the trap, and all I do, this unwound here, all I do is leave a pretty good sized loop in the end of the cable, and I just tuck it through the end swivel, and then I feed the cable back through itself, and my trap is attached to the cable. For staking system, I like the pogo stake. And what it is, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it in the camera there. What it is, it's an 1.5 inch fender washer with a 1/4 inch hole in it with a J-hook attached to the end of the cable. Now, if you want to take full advantage of the 10 feet of cable you use, then you can make you up some short ones like this. And the way I attach them to the trap, you can either leave a big loop in the end of it, like so, and just push the washer through the loop, you know, attached to your cable or to your trap, or you can get these split rings. Now you want to be careful on these split rings, which ones you buy. Some of these are really, really good, and some of them are teetotal junk. They're just too damn soft, and they'll open up on you. They'll straighten them right out. So be careful with the ones you get. Only other piece of equipment I use is a tile spade. That's pretty much it. Pretty simple, pretty basic. I don't like carrying a lot of weight with me. I don't like packing a lot of things around. So with that being said about the equipment, let's get into making a couple of sets here and show y'all just exactly what I do and how I do it. Okay, now you can see what I've done here. I've took my tile spade here and I cut this horseshoe shape back into the bank. This is going to guide our beaver in for us. Now, out here in front of this, I've left a berm of dirt in front of the mouth of this horseshoe that I've cut. The reason I left that there, beaver have an automatic reaction. When they bump something with their chest, they automatically put their front feet down. That's what I need him to do. I need him to bump that berm of dirt with his chest and put his front feet down and then step over it. So what we're going to do here now, we're going to take our tile spade and see how well this shows up. I hope it does. Right in front of the berm of that dirt, we're going to cut us out a bed for our trap, just like we would if we were bedding it for a coyote. Just like so. Kick that over there out of the way. Okay. Now, this is important. I'm going to show you something here. All right. We got this berm of dirt right here. Now, as he swims up and hits that with his chest, he puts his feet down. His first step over the berm is into the trap. And you can see the difference here. Okay, here's the water depth off to the side here is about that deep. Now, as we drop into our bed, we're almost that deep. In my mind, it's no different than you and I walking out across your yard or across your pasture. If you step off in a hole, you've got more weight going down on that foot than you do the other one. That beaver is no different. When he takes that first step over that berm of dirt, he's going into a hole. So he automatically has more weight going down on that foot than he does the other three. Results in a deeper catch. Where you have trouble with ring off with beaver is not getting them caught high enough. The number 3 Duke, the old number 3 and 4 double long spring Victors, the number 3 and 4 coil spring Victors will not work with this style of setting because the jaws are too low of a profile. You need a trap that's got a tall jaw that comes up here on the beaver instead of down here on the wrist joint. That's the no zone. That's where you run into problems. You've got to get him up here. So, the number 3 Bridgers, coil springs, the number 3 and 4 Herders, the number 4 Duke, the number 3 and 4 Montgomery doggons. And I like all my traps doggone. I do not like a dogless beaver trap. Those are the traps that I use. So I want to point that out to you. I want you to keep that in mind. You have to have a trap with a tall jaw. So with this being said, set our trap. And I want that trap positioned so that he comes between the jaws, not over the jaws. That's very important. I want my loose jaw centered with my approach, okay, or with my castor mount. You pile mud and leaves up here on the bank and make your castor mount. So I want the loose jaw in the center of that. That offsets that pan roughly about 3 inches. And if you measure a beaver, even a big beaver, from the center of his chest over to his front shoulder, he's roughly 3 inches. So you're 3 inches offset, pan center. Place it down into that bed and seat it down in there deep. Now I'm approximately, 12 inches back. Yeah, 10, 12 inches back, pan center, from my horseshoe that I've cut here. And that's all there is to it. Then I'll lure this set up, and either you can use any one of my 4 beaver lures on this set. You can use my Swamp Master, Cypress Breaks, Chips, or the Iowa Silver. You can use any one of the 4 on here. And that's it. I staked my trap here at the edge of the water, and I just let that beaver swim. What he'll do is he'll go from the bank to the water back to the bank. And as long as he can do that, he feels safe, he feels comfortable. So what he'll do most of the time, the next morning, when you come to him, he's as far up the bank as he can get, stretched out, rolled up in a ball, sleeping. And then when you come up to him, he just ambles his way down to the water to try to get away from you. You just reel him in, dispatch him with a 22, whatever your favorite method or means of dispatch is, and that's all there is to it. So with that being said, let's go on in and move into where we can, I'll show you how to use this same set with a snare. It's very simple, very easy. So all we do, uncoil our snare here. We've got it staked here on the bank. We take our support wire. I've got this little W bend in it for a reason. That way when you stick it in the bottom, this little tail goes in also, and then that supports your snare solid. So we've got our snare staked. We're going to position our support wire right there. We're going to open the loop, put our support collar on the end of that wire, and then position that snare as close to that berm of dirt back away from our castor mound as we can get. We want the beaver to be able to pass through the snare to reach before he reaches the mound. Might put a guide stick in here, or we might pile up some debris here on the sides to keep him in here. If for some reason you don't catch that beaver as he's coming in, you will catch him on the return when he goes back out. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I got to do this, I got to do. No, that's, you just put the set in. It'll take care of itself. Anyway, that would be the completed set. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that y'all seen just exactly what I was talking about. I don't know how well it's showing up in the camera today. It's sunny and then it's overcast, and I don't know how it's going to work out. But anyway, you can see the castor mound there. You see the horseshoe shape that I've cut. There's our snare set. The berm of dirt out there in front of it. And again, we'll go over this just one more time for a foothold. Again, you see the water depth here off to the side, and then once we drop down into our bed for our trap, we're probably somewhere between 5.5 and 6 inches water over top of the pan of the trap. And that would be the completed set. That's the way I set a castor mound. If you guys have any questions at all, just drop them in the comments below. I'll get to them and answer them just as quick as I can. All right, guys. That pretty well concludes castor mounds and beaver. Look for more videos on beaver in the future when it's not so stinking hot. I absolutely hate summertime. But anyway, it'll cool off one of these days, and we'll get into some more in-depth about beaver and all the other critters as well. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. If you would, please, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you want to see in future videos. Until then, this is Dale Billingsley signing off.